Hello and welcome to a new and totally original show that's never been done on YouTube before. A top 10 or sometimes top 5 video list, which is perfectly named TopsieZ, with a Z. And what better subject to start with than my top 10 video games?
Disclaimer, I'm not doing nonsense restrictions like one per franchise or not allowed a series, because this is my list and not yours, cheeky smiley face. If you don't like it, you can write to the complaints department at Flickering Pixelz is happy to listen to your complaints at lolzers.org.
Yes, Overwatch. I seem to be obsessed with mentioning this game in nearly every Flickering Pixelz video I've made so far, with posters, references to toxicity, random comments, etc. So if I hate it so much, why is it in my top 10, you may ask yourself? Well, it's complicated. You see, I don't play a lot of online competitive games because I'm not the best mechanically to kill things. I tend to be a millisecond slower than most people with trigger fingers. Plus, I don't have the time to invest hundreds of hours into a single particular game to get good. Overwatch rewards not just the fastest and most accurate trigger fingers, but teamwork. Even if you're the best diva or widow in the world, you won't win the game for your team if you aren't working together. You need coordination, great positioning skills, awareness, a great healer or two, a good tank, perfect uses of your ultimates, and of course, DPS, yo! So why am I ranking it 10th and not higher? Well, just like everyone else has commented on it by now, it's an incredibly frustrating game, from people not coordinating, toxicity, throwers, and players just not helping the cause. It makes it difficult to fully love this great game, because it is beautiful. The characters are cool, the gameplay is great, but the players can ruin this game very quickly. What also doesn't help is that Blizzard seems to do everything to accustom the game for the few hundred pros that play professionally, who then go on to do nothing but talk shit about Overwatch and their patches on their YouTube channels and streams. But in doing so, they screw the other millions playing the game daily and having to handle the bullshit, like currently dealing with this horrific Reaper buff that's terrorising the lower ranks, all because they wanted to stop goats, which is a high tier first world problem that's affecting us in the third world gold ranks and below. And here's the kicker. No pros are playing Reaper. Well done, Blizzard. Bred in circuses, Blizzard. It kept the Roman Empire. It should work here too. Now this isn't a rant against the game. I genuinely love Overwatch, hence top 10, but it should really rank higher. But between Blizzard accommodating to the gaming elites and human nature needing to be toxic, Overwatch lands the number 10 spot on my prestigious list. Oh no, am I cheating on the rules on how to make a top 10 video game list on YouTube? Well, go and call the internet police, because this to me is one huge game. Yeah. Just like the recent Crash Bandicoot Insane collection is considered a single game bundle now, this is also a single game bundle. So shut up, okay? Released on the Super Nintendo, and what a fantastic collection it is. You have the classic Mario 1, 2 and 3 games, and the previously unreleased to the West Super Mario 2 from Japan, renamed to The Lost Levels, with updated graphics and the phenomenal Super Mario World. I don't think I need to go on about why these games are amazing, since everyone and Jesus knows these games, so I won't bore you with the details. What I'll give you though is a story that I don't feel many people, if anyone, talks about. So get your milk and cookies out, boys and girls, it's story time. I don't know about the rest of the world, but I was never told about the pass the controller. You know, the rule of if you die, you pass the controller. When you complete a stage, you pass the controller to your friend. I feel that Mario games gave birth to this gentleman's agreement on it's your turn now. Was it the first game to have this gentleman's agreement? Of course not, but Mario is the game that brought gaming back into the mainstream and popular. I'll explain. For the longest time, Mario was a single player experience. Yeah, there were 2 players, but it was both players doing the same stages, and if your friend knew the game inside out, you could be waiting ages for your turn. There was 3 problems with this. 1, it took longer to complete the game. 2, not everyone had a second controller. And 3, what if there was more than 2 players? Co-op didn't exist, so we invented our own cooperative terms. The gentleman's agreement of everyone plays Mario and tries to complete the game together. You give your friend the controller every stage completed or on every death. This thing continued on to every other stage game at the time, including Sonic, Crash Bandicoot, everything, even fighting games. The Super Mario All-Star Collection is a magnificent bundle of games that still garner all sorts of love from all ends of the gaming community, from the party mob to the speedrunners. Truly a classic. Oof, we're on to this one already. I'm guessing the knives are out to get me now. Okay, I'll be careful and take this more seriously. The PlayStation 1 trilogy Final Fantasy games are some of the most beloved games ever released in the history of gamedom, especially Final Fantasy VII. It has crazy mega fans to insane lore-driven fanatics, super love for the music composer Nobuo Uematsu, who single-handedly turned video game music into art. Final Fantasy VII is the game that got me royally into JRPGs, so I don't have to massage its balls because it already receives unreal praise as it is, so I'll skip the review and just say it's amazing. But Final Fantasy VII isn't the best at being Final Fantasy. Hold on. To me, it's still a phenomenally groundbreaking game. Final Fantasy VII literally changed my gaming experience, and for the better. Back in the day, I used to play games like Street Fighter and FIFA, all those arcadey kind of games. I didn't know that a game with storytelling abilities like this even existed. Final Fantasy VII opened my eyes and blew my mind away with its amazing music, superior graphics and storytelling right out of a novel. It changed my life. So FF7 has a very, very strong nostalgic appeal to me, and no matter how many times I try to think of ways to knock it off my top 10 list, it always reappears because it's simply amazing. So what about Final Fantasy 8 and 9? Well, Final Fantasy 8 to me was the game that lived up to its hype. It was the first time I waited for a game to be released. I didn't care about release dates for games back then, but me and Gary were looking at everything to find out more information about this game. Buying magazines, buying demo discs, even other people's rumours. When we seen the screenshots, we were blown away by the graphics. Damn, Squall looks badass and he has a rad scar on his face too. Cool. We ate it up. Now I know Gary doesn't hold this as highly as Final Fantasy VII, but I do, and for one reason, the story. I feel the story is better than 7's. I care for the characters more, even with Squall and his moping around attitude. I prefer Rinoa over Aeris and Tifa. I loved the cutscenes. I enjoyed playing FF8 a lot more. It just flowed better in my opinion. So what of Final Fantasy 9 then? Number 9 was the better all-rounder. It didn't have the best characters, but it also didn't have crap characters. It was a very happy medium. FF7 had Vincent and Sid, who are annoying. Final Fantasy 8 had Irvine and Zell, who are also annoying. But Final Fantasy 9 had no bad characters, and the story was more fantasy, whereas 7 and 8 were both more realistic. The hardcore fans of Final Fantasy prefer number 9, whereas the mainstream prefer 7. I love all 3. I can't choose one over the other because they all have their pros and cons. If you could mix all 3 into a sexy mixture, you'd probably have the best Final Fantasy game ever. But as we all know now, not even Square can make a good Final Fantasy anymore. with Final Fantasy XIII being about walking down a corridor and 15 being about riding a car. They are pieces of shit. So the Final Fantasy trilogy for PlayStation 1 takes the number 8 spot. The Lost Vikings for Super Nintendo is officially the game that got me addicted to gaming. No, I'm serious. I used to play football for a few teams when I was younger and had a relatively good chance of being signed by a club. Until my friend introduced this game to me. Yes, this beloved game from my childhood is still loved equally today as it did the first time I ever played it. My love for this game has never dipped, not even for a millisecond. It is a masterpiece, like Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam, or Leonardo's Mona Lisa, or Limp Bizkit's Results May Vary. It's a beautifully crafted puzzle platformer with gorgeous graphics and awesome tunes. The balance between the three characters to make this work is amazing, so simple yet so effective. It rates high on most review scores, peaking at 9 out of 10, and so it should. But I do understand why it doesn't get a 10 out of 10 though, as it's a puzzle game and that requires a certain amount of love from a particular gamer who's into puzzle games. So it's definitely not for everyone, but for those who won't play it because it's a puzzle game are wrong and should bury their head in the sand. I mean, come on, how can you not love a game of a chubby Viking who shows his arse when he climbs ladders? And yes, a very good friend of mine gave me a statue of the Lost Vikings when she worked at Blizzard. Thank you, Wicked. Oh, and Blizzard, I know I've already semi-ranted against your game Overwatch, but when are you going to release another Lost Vikings game, huh? At least add them to Overwatch. And before you say, oh, but Dean, the Lost Vikings don't have tech abilities. The Lost Vikings 2 equipped our favourite Vikings with robotic gear. So yeah, Olaf, Tank, Balog, DPS, and Eric? Yes. Get it done, Blizzard. Streets of Rage. Oh yes! Streets of Rage 1 and 2 are easily my favourite games for the Sega Mega Drive, for a few reasons. One, the music. Oh my god, the music! You have no idea how many years I've lost to listening to the Streets of Rage soundtracks, especially Streets of Rage 1's music, because it has the bad ending, which I used to use for the closing to all my videos. I always get goosebumps hearing that track. The music is enough alone to make me play these games over and over. But enough about the music. Let's get on to reason number 2 on why this is my favourite Mega Drive game. Streets of Rage also happens to have one of the best and most intuitive combat systems in any beat-em-ups ever released, which says a lot since there are literally hundreds of beat-em-up games out there. But Streets of Rage became the gold standard for all other beat-em-ups to try and best, and none ever have. It's so much fun. Whenever I went to Gary's house, this was the go-to game, even when we had PlayStations at the time. The 80s 90s vibe about it, the bosses, weapons are great, the moves are devastating, the stages are all over the place, from weird swamps to the obligatory elevator stage, to even a baseball field. Super rad. If there was a perfect template on how beat 'em up should be and feel, Streets of Rage is your template, but even Streets of Rage has dropped the ball with the third of the series. But we all like to pretend that game doesn't exist. Streets of Rage 4 has been announced, and I have very high hopes for this game. Sega has been doing the goods with their old IPs as of late. What with Sonic Mania being absolutely brilliant, Shenmue being a great remaster, and Wonder Boy 3 The Dragon's Trap remake / remaster was wonderfully crafted. But even if Streets of Rage 4 is atrocious, we still have the classic duo from the early 90s to keep me entertained for even more years to come. Streets of Rage just misses out in the top 5, coming at a very credible number 6.